Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. As you can already tell by the title and thumbnail, this is going to be a vlog all about reading books that have to do with bees. I have my bee shirt on, I have some fun flower earrings. I'm here to intro this video for you. In this video, I read 12 books about bees. Granted, a few of them were picture books, so that is why there's so many. I had certain plans, I had a previous intro, and I really didn't read half the books that I mentioned in that intro, so I just will talk about these 12 books as I get to them. And overall, it was an interesting experience. Not unlike the first bee vlog I did, quite a few of these were duds. Some were disappointments, and only a few really stood out to me, but I had a great time reading them, and I learned some things about myself and some stuff I like and don't like in books. I guess I should say, for those that don't know and think, why am I obsessed with bees? My dad is a beekeeper, and I live on a family farm, and I sell honey at farmers markets during the summer, and I have been around honey and honeybees my whole life. My mom goes to stores, especially like Home Goods and Marshalls and TJ Maxx and Hobby Lobby, and if there's anything with a bee on it, she will buy it. And I have somewhat inherited that thing of like wanting to buy things with bees on them, but it has translated into books because books are my hobby. So books with bees on the cover or having to do with bees is now my thing. So there's a lot of genres that I usually don't dabble in, but if it has bees on it for the sake of a video like this, I'm probably gonna pick it up even if it's out of my comfort zone, which is kind of a fun challenge for myself. All that being said, grab yourself a cup of tea, maybe with some honey in it, and thanks for watching. It is April 1st, and to me, April's really like the start of spring, even though spring was technically like a couple weeks ago. But it is April 1st, and I'm participating in the Picture This readathon, and so I thought I would start out this vlog with 3 bee-themed picture books. Technically 1 board book and 2 picture books. But the first book I picked up was Honey by David Ezra Stein. I actually spotted this book in a cute little bookshop in Newburgh, Oregon. I'll link the vlog above of where I found this one, but this was very sweet. I gave it 4 stars, maybe 3.5. What I like on the back here, it says, any toddler who has ever waited patiently or not so patiently for something will relate. It's about a bear that is waiting patiently for honey to be in season for summertime. It was a sweet little read. The other picture book I picked up is Bee, a peek-through picture book by Britta Teckentrup. I work at the library, and when I was an aide, I shelved this book a ton, and this author has a lot more other books that are like it, that are like this peek-through cutout book, and all of her books are really beautiful. I gave this one 5 stars, a very beautiful rhyming scheme throughout, and also felt very accurate to like what bees do and what they provide for like nature at large, and I just thought this was a lovely read. And then finally today I also finished Kaya and the Bees by Maribeth Boltz. This is about a young girl who is really brave, except she's afraid of bees, but her dad is a beekeeper and she learns to be brave around bees. And I also thought that it was a very sweet story. So great start off to the vlog, first day of April. I'm not entirely sure how long this vlog will go. We'll see, but I'll check in with you when I have my next book read. So I decided to start reading Requeening by Amanda Moore. This is a collection of poetry, and I'm not a huge poetry person, but I had to pick this up because of this cover, of course, and I thought, you know, I'll throw in a poetry collection in this video, and it's actually National Poetry Month, the month of April. This is a collection of poetry that has to do with imagery around the hive and bees, but I think it picks up on themes of motherhood and relationships and the mother-daughter relationship. This is a 2020 winner of the National Poetry Series. So I've only read 2 of the poems so far. This is less than 100 pages. I don't really want to read it all in one sitting. I kind of want to space it out a bit, but I just started it and I'm already like a little bit over my head. This is the kind of poetry that I'm having a really hard time understanding and relating to. I mean, I'm gonna still give it a go. I've only read 2 and I really couldn't tell you what they were about. My problem with some poetry is I feel too dumb to understand what the author is trying to say. Like, she's using words and she's putting them together, but I don't understand totally what the poem is about. But those are just my initial thoughts. But I did want to mention, while I'm drinking my tea here, public service announcement for all of you Trader Joe's fans, and it fit with the theme of this video. Honey graham crackers with sea salt, dark chocolate. If you are a dark chocolate fan, this is very heavily dark chocolate flavor. You don't totally taste the graham crackers, but they're so good. It's a little chocolate. to check in about The Way of the Hive, a honeybee story by Jay Hostler. This is a middle grade graphic novel and I thoroughly enjoyed it. 4 stars, very, very informative, very scientific about the actual way honeybees work and their life cycle and what goes on in and out of the hive. Of course, it was told with a imaginative spin because the main character is a bee and she's like alive. I would say it was a similar experience to reading The Bees, which I have on my shelf over there, where the main character is also a honeybee and goes on this like mission, but this is a more appropriate children's version of events, and I thought it was lovely. Really fantastic illustrations, great detail and research from the author. I thought it was a great little graphic novel. Hey, just checking in. It is currently April 5th, so it's been a few days, and I have 3 more bee books to check in with you about that I have since completed. I will say up front, these were all duds for various reasons. This one I picked up with low expectations, and those expectations were met, and that is Be More Bee by Allison Davies. How to Find Your Buzz. Now this book is super cute. It has some lovely illustrations in here of like bees and quotes. There were aspects of this book that were really adorable, but the words in it, this is like self-help but not edited and doesn't really make any sense. And let me read you some just to give you a feel of how bad this was. Take the lead. Be the head of the swarm and take the lead with these bee-inspired tips. See it and believe it. If you have a goal in mind, picture it as clearly as the sweetest, brightest flower swaying in the breeze. See yourself reaching it. Drink in the emotions and relive the narrative every day until that goal is in your grasp. So that's just a tiny little sample. There's a lot more in here with trying to be punny, trying to have some sort of relation to bees, but really it was just very silly, surface level, fluffy language about setting goals and believing in yourself. The illustrations, wonderful. The actual content in this book sucked. So that's unfortunate, but it looks really cute on the shelf, so I will be putting this in our little beehive shop, just sitting there for decoration. This next one I already mentioned, but Requeening by Amanda Moore. I finished this poetry collection. To go off of what I originally suspected, I did continually feel stupid while reading this. I feel like I need an intro to poetry. I need someone who's really into poetry to tell me, check these books out first, because I just didn't really understand this. It did get better and then it tapered off again. It like went in waves. There were some poems in here that made sense. There were some that I was like, oh, those are fine. There were a couple that made me smile, but overall, most of them I read and I was like, that was pointless. That was just, again, me feeling stupid. Like I clearly didn't understand what the author was trying to evoke in those words. And then the 7th book that I finished for this vlog is Kissing the Bee by Kathy Koja. This was actually a gift that I received from the wonderful Jessie. She's a lovely viewer that sent a little sweet gift package. It's a teeny tiny little short 120-page book. And this is the most young adult book I have ever read. Like, it just evoked all of the young adult feels. So much teenage angst in here. The main story is a love triangle. It's 3 friends, 2 of them are dating. The main character is in love with the boy and she's best friends with the girl, and she has all these repressed feelings. They're getting ready for prom and they're about to graduate high school. It was just so young adult, and if you know anything about me, you know I don't really love young adults, and this was like the epitome of that. I think I would have liked this if I was a teenager, and I honestly still have no regrets reading it. Like, it really wasn't that bad because it was so short. If this was a long novel and a lot more happened, it would have been terrible, but this was so short. The chapters were tiny and nothing really happened. Like, I think everything in this book spanned like a month. That was all it needed to be for it to be palatable enough for me to get through it, but I still appreciate the gift, Jessie. So I'm here to check in with you about Small Favors. This was a very interesting and unique reading experience for me. It is currently April 9th. I finished it up this morning, making this the, how many bee books have I read? Making this the 8th book that I finished in this video. This is a young adult fantasy horror novel, which I realized, and I have really not read much fantasy or horror. So this was unique for me, and I think I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised at how much I could handle or liked this book, but then I didn't at the same time. So this book started off really strong. I was like immediately gripped, pulled into the story, super captivated, super interested in what was happening. It really gave off the same vibes as the movie The Village, which is a 2004 horror movie by the director M. Night Shyamalan or Shyamalan or whatever his name is. That was a really creepy movie and had some fantastic and really interesting twists and turns. So immediately the story gave off that energy. It's this small kind of almost like cult-like religious community near the woods, and they're kind of set apart, and then all of a sudden things start going wrong and like mysterious stuff start happening to people in the village, and there's maybe some creatures in the woods who are causing harm, and the main protagonist is a young teenage girl, and the surrounding characters are really everyone in the village but mostly her family, and then a love interest that comes into the story. So it started off strong, and then as more things became known and started to unravel and like the mystery started to unfold of what actually was going on behind the scenes with all of this like creepiness and all that, it got worse. It like significantly went downhill for me. Not too far. It wasn't a terrible book. I still ended up giving it 3 stars because I liked, honestly, the overall experience. I just was disappointed at the end with like, oh really, that's where you're gonna take the story and like that's where it's gonna end. And there was like definitely some creepiness in here that was probably at the most capacity level that I could handle in a book. There was a little bit of like body horror-ish. There was quite a lot of depictions of like murder and violence, not overly descriptive. I honestly just didn't really vibe with like the main, I guess, evil in this book is kind of like demonic and possessive in nature, and that's like the main thing I don't love reading about in horror. Like I could handle like a serial killer, which even then I don't really love serial killer books. Like I could feel like I could handle realistic murder, but when it comes to like paranormal, supernatural, possession, demonic, kind of weird monster things, not my favorite. And this book definitely went there. Not too far, but it went there, and I was like, okay, well, that's unfortunate, because if you watch the movie The Village, the twists in there are super interesting, and I really like that. Like I prefer that kind of horror story when it comes to monsters and then what's actually revealed. So, unique reading experience. I think I was pleasantly surprised with my enjoyment of it, which makes me think that maybe I could probably handle some books like this in the future, but at the same time I don't want to read about weird creepy monsters who like possess people. I still don't quite know when this video is going to end. I really want to pick up a historical fiction next and see if I have any luck, if I could at least get a 4 or 5 star read in this video besides a picture book, because I was really thinking this was really in like 4.5 star territory for a second, and then it went down. So I'm still hoping for like a great book. Hey friends, it's been a minute and I'm here to finally wrap up this vlog. I sort of just fell off the face of the earth because life got a little bit hectic, but I did end up finishing 4 more bee books for this video, so let me take you through those really quickly. The first one was The Beekeeper's Promise by Fiona Valpy. This is a historical fiction set in France, dual timelines, one during World War II and one in like 2016. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I liked it overall, but was disappointed primarily with the modern present day timeline. I kind of could care less about that character and it just felt unnecessary. There was a lot more that could have been unpacked in the historical time period and with those main characters. There's 2 main women in this story. The one in the present day timeline is on a yoga retreat in France, and she gets randomly asked to work at this chateau and take part in this wedding business. But she's dealing with a lot of grief and PTSD from this horrible accident, and then also her abusive husband. And in the past, it's this young woman who's a beekeeper, and as their part of France becomes occupied by the Nazi soldiers, she gets involved and her other family and friends get involved in the French resistance, and there's also like random little love interests throughout. It was intriguing somewhat, but there were parts that I was just honestly quite bored with and sort of just rolled my eyes. It was just one of those mediocre historical fictions for me that will ultimately be quite forgettable, which is unfortunate. I then picked up Bee, which was this very interesting nonfiction art photography book. So this book is full of these black and white, microscopic, really detailed close-up photographs of the parts of the honeybee. Honestly, slightly like off-putting, potentially grotesque if it weirds you out, like scientific close-ups. I really love the intro, so I'm gonna read it here for you, and that is: our most important pollinator, the ultimate synergist, an architect, spatial genius, winged apothecary, and the transmuter of the finest substance of nectar into honey. The honeybee has been revered and utilized by civilizations throughout time. I ended up giving this one like 4.5, close to 5 stars. I honestly learned not only so much about the honeybee, but I also just felt felt this like reverence for it, more understanding about the honeybee and its processes and how its body was created to do what it does, which is quite magnificent. So I love this one. And then finally, 2 more picture books, because April was picture book month and I just read so many. So any that had bees on it, I'm like, get it from the library. This one was Beehive by Jory Hurley. It's a very, very simplistic book. Like every page just has one word on it. But I thought it was sweet. And I think it tells the story of what the honeybee does, even as simplistic as that. So I would still totally buy this book and like own it in my collection. So I'll be keeping an eye out when I go to bookstores for it. And then finally, the favorite of the bunch is Winter Bees and Other Poems of the Cold by Joyce Sidman and Rick Allen. This one, because bees are in the title and there's a tiny little honeybee on the cover, but this is so much more than about bees. There is one page and one small poem about honeybees, but this is all about other animals during the winter, and I loved this one so much. This was very reminiscent of The Lost Spells by Robert Macfarlane, which was a beautiful nature poetry collection that I loved in February, and this was reminiscent of it. A beautiful picture book. I loved these illustrations, and as beautiful as the poetry was, it also taught me a lot about these different animals. So it's a nonfiction poetry that was not only informative but also very like special to read. So in total for this video, I read 12 books that had to do with bees or had bees on the cover or something about bees. 4 of those were picture books and 1 board book. 2 were books of poetry. 2 books for the young adult audience, 1 being a contemporary, 1 being a horror fantasy. 1 historical fiction, and 3 non-fictions, 1 being an art book, a middle grade graphic novel, and a tiny little self-help book. Out of all of those, the 2 easy 5-star favorites were these 2 picture books, Bee and Winter Bees. And like I mentioned, Winter Bees definitely won out the rest of all the books. This one was the best one. And then like I mentioned, I also really enjoyed this one, as well as The Way of the Hive. I thought this was a great little graphic novel. All the other ones were honestly a little bit more either average or forgettable or random. These 3 were probably my least favorite. This one was the one that made the least sense. This poetry collection, I was too stupid to understand, and this young adult was a ridiculous young adult, but I honestly also didn't like hate it, you know? It was interesting. So that wraps up this little random bee vlog. I still have so many more books about bees that I could read, so another one will be coming at some point. I have a whole little shelf right there still of books. Some are read, some are not. I think I definitely prioritized picture books and like reading short books, but I definitely want to check off some more nonfiction I have and some more historical fiction that are a little bit chunkier, but April just got away from me. I still somehow managed to read 12 books in this video, but thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye!